been able to really put on a great Christchurch show for them. So if I can have a huge round of applause for Miss Nicola Bryant, Perfectly in Brown, and Colin Baker, the Doctor.
Hello everybody, how are you?
Good.
Having a good time?
Yeah.
Why, what are you doing? Where's all the makeup? I want to see all the people with the makeup on. No?
Now, if you want to come up and ask questions, come over to the microphone here. We have a guest compere, Mr. Paul Scoons, who's from Retro Space. If you want to buy some Doctor Who stuff, they've got a great Doctor Who stand up there. And Paul is also a reasonably proficient Doctor Who expert. In fact, I would say that in New Zealand there's nobody who doesn't live in their mother's basement that knows more about Doctor Who than Paul. So Paul will be sort of comparing a bit and putting some questions on. But if you have questions for the Doctor and Peri, Nicola and Colin, feel free to come on up, ask questions, and we'll get this party started. Okay, who's got a question for Colin and Nicola? Come on. He said, how big is the TARDIS on the inside?
Oh. Well, it depends what kind of day you're having. Sometimes you go inside the TARDIS, especially when it's outdoors, and you go inside and it seems very, very small, because lots of people have to fit into a very small TARDIS. Sometimes when you're inside the TARDIS, it feels enormous, because you can fit cameramen and Cybermen into the same TARDIS.
I don't know what she's talking about. The TARDIS, it's infinite, it's enormous. You go in those blue doors and you can go forever. You can walk from England to Australia inside the TARDIS. It is immeasurable. It's as big as the inside of your head. And the inside of your head is bigger than the outside. Because the inside of your head carries all the Doctor Who stories, all the things that have happened in your life, all the things you've seen, all the books you've read. They're all inside one little head. But the head is little on the outside, big on the inside. That's what the TARDIS is like.
Question?
Hello. How much did your sort of real life interactions influence your characters? Like, did that have any effect on the way you played the characters? Or was that something that more developed afterwards?
Shut up!
Oh, you're a monster.
That was a joke.
There was one influence for me, particularly when I started to play Peri. There was a girl that I had been at school with who was American. And she had a very difficult relationship with her parents. She was very unhappy, and she'd been sent to England to boarding school, and she was kind of misplaced as a soul. She was searching for many things that she hadn't yet found. And that sense of not knowing who you are and where you want to be and where you belong was something that I felt Peri had. Because in order to choose to leave behind your family when you're just about to start university, to leave all of that behind and choose to travel with the Doctor, there must be something I believe you're trying to get away from. So I used some of her pain and insecurity I put somewhere in Peri, but my goodness, she was also a very brave and feisty girl. So I liked to add that sort of mix together. But the rest of it was just the invention of Peri. But having now played Peri for over half my life, I have to say there are now huge bits, and everything is very personal when it's to do with Peri, because it's been such a huge part of my life. But that was the original sort of starting point.
I think you meant the relationship between us, didn't you? Yes. The question was, how did our relationship impinge on our relationship as Peri and the Doctor? I could see your expression like, what? Not in the slightest, because in real life, she hates me. She's more intelligent than me. She's more beautiful than me. She knew all her lines. I never knew my lines. She was whispering them to me out of the corner of her mouth. And she tolerated me. She tolerated me for 3 years and then got me the sack. So, but I still love her, even though our relationship off stage was appalling. She treated me really badly. She locked me out of the studios. I wasn't allowed the dressing room, she took over mine. But I had to pretend that we had a good relationship when we were doing the filming. And I think it came across quite well.
Colin has been very ill. You probably gathered that from his first answer. But we decided to let him out to celebrate the 50th. I love him dearly, and he is slowly recovering. Thank you for your patience. So you can tell there's absolutely no influence on our relationship.
Hello.
Hello.
Who was your first ever Doctor who you actually watched on television?
I believe I watched Patrick Troughton, but I don't remember. I do remember watching John Pertwee. That was the first Doctor that I really connected with. And I loved the whole setup. I loved John Pertwee, I loved Katie Manning as Jo, I loved Bessie the Car, and I loved Gina. That was the sort of the era that I fell in love with first.
23rd of November 1963, I was a law student studying in London, training to be a lawyer, and I came back to my flat in Lancaster Gate in the centre of London one Saturday evening. As I came in, it was a basement flat, there were stairs going down into a living room where my 4 fellow law students were sitting watching television. And the opening credits came up of the first ever William Hartnell episode, and I took off my coat, put it over the railing of the banisters, and leaned on the railing to see what this programme was on this black and white flickering screen. And 25, 27 minutes later, when it finished, I was still standing there watching it. It was fantastic, it was different, it was new, it was exciting. Now people look back and say, oh, I used to love the old Doctor Who, those shaky sets and the ridiculous costumes. They didn't love it for that reason, because when they saw it in 1963, that was state of the art. It was ahead of everything else. All sets of television programs made back then now look shaky, and people justify the fact that they liked them by saying, oh, we thought it was rubbish, but we liked it. No, we were all involved. That was really exciting. And they repeated that story the following week, because it coincided with the assassination of John Kennedy when the first episode was shown. So they repeated it, and I was hooked, and so was everyone in Britain. It was just something brave and different. So I remember that very clearly, and I watched all of the William Hartnell stuff and all of the Patrick Troughton stories. And if you had said to me then, one day, Colin, you'll be playing that part, I would have frankly thought you were insane. But then I remember when I was 11 years old, walking to school and seeing people in cars. If you'd said to me then, one day you'll drive a car, because cars were quite rare when I was a kid in 1740. An aeroplane, going up in an aeroplane, don't be ridiculous. And add to that, one day you'll be Doctor Who. At that point, the idea of being an actor to a boy in where I came from, in a mill town in the north of England, was like saying one day you'll learn to fly. And to play what is arguably the best part on television, I mean, that's just taking it too far. But it happened. So I use that as I know this has developed from the question you asked. Any one of you sitting out there, if you have a dream that you think is impossible, it might be, but also it might not. Whatever your dream is, hang on to it. Never let your dreams go, because for some people have different dreams. Some people dream of something which is attainable. Other people dream of things that aren't attainable, but you attain them. You do actually find yourself doing it. Some people do have to travel in rockets to the moon. Some people do become television stars. Some people become the prime ministers of countries. And there's one person sitting here now, I guarantee, at least one person, you will exceed your own expectations of yourself by a long way. I should be next door, shouldn't I, in the other exhibition? I don't know where that came from, but mentioning that very first episode of Doctor Who, for me, is that quantum leap between something amazing and then wind forward 30 years and I'm sitting here talking to you about it. Who would have thought that? So that could be you. Keep your dreams.